In today's world, diabetes is a big deal. It affects a large proportion of the population, and it is growing at an alarmingly fast rate. And that's happening both in the US and worldwide. In the United States alone, 30 million people have type 2 diabetes, and it's largely a reversible condition. An estimated 2 to 4 million people are living with type 1 diabetes in the United States, and a staggering 85 million people are living with prediabetes in the United States, and the majority of them don't even know it. How is that even possible? Now, there's also millions of other people who are living with type 1.5 diabetes, type 3 diabetes, which is cognitive decline or Alzheimer's disease, as well as gestational diabetes, and MODY, which is mature onset diabetes in the young. Now, worldwide, what that means is that there's a minimum of 535 million people. That's right, 535 million people who could be largely disease-free within the next 6 months. And there's over 10 plus million people who could be living healthy, happy, and fulfilling lives without the fear of more autoimmune conditions and the nasty complications of autoimmune type 1 diabetes, such as kidney disease, fatty liver disease, peripheral neuropathy, and cognitive decline. That's why this is an important message. Now, if you're living with diabetes, you're not alone. No matter what form of diabetes you have, there's a simple, easy set of lifestyle changes that can truly transform your life from the inside out. And no, that's not hyperbole. This is real. What I'm about to share with you is a story that you can implement in your life starting today. It's based on a set of scientific principles that have been around for more than 100 years. The truth is that if you take this information seriously, it can positively impact your health. It can change the way you look. It can change the way you feel. It can change the way that you think. And it can change the numbers that you see on your blood work and in your blood glucose meter. This is not a test of the emergency broadcast system. This is science. Now, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at the age of 22, which is a relatively late diagnosis for somebody with type 1. I've told this story 1,000 times, but if you haven't heard it before, not a problem. I was diagnosed with not only type 1 diabetes, but 3 total autoimmune conditions, which is Hashimoto's hypothyroidism, alopecia universalis, which is code for I have no hair, which is I have no eyebrows, no eyelashes, no ear hair, no nose hair. I cannot grow a beard. I have no chest hair, and I have no hair on the top of my head. And then in addition to that, I also have type 1 diabetes. All 3 of these conditions set in with about a 6-month period. And when that happened, I was very confused. I didn't know why it happened. And truthfully, to this day, I still don't. I was told to eat a low carbohydrate diet at that time in my life. And I didn't know anything about human biology. I didn't know anything about nutrition. And I followed the advice of the traditional Western medicine approach. I was at that time admittedly pretty sad because at the age of 22, I was dealt 3 cards that decreased my quality of life very quickly. I was searching for a new solution, a new way of life, a new feeling that made me feel energetic, that enabled me to continue to be an athlete, and that enabled me to control my blood glucose and prevent myself from using more insulin over the course of time. Following a low carbohydrate diet did not work for me in any way, shape, or form. My blood glucose was high, my insulin use was climbing over the course of time, and my energy levels were extremely low. When I switched over to eating a plant-based diet, not because I was looking for a plant-based diet, but because I was presented with the idea of eating a plant-based diet, I switched over, and within 1 week of doing so, my blood glucose became immediately controllable. My insulin use fell by 40% within the first week. My energy levels went up. My hydration went up. My sleep improved. I felt like $1,000,000. And from that point onwards, I then went on another 18-year journey to where we are today to try and learn everything that I possibly could about living with type 1 diabetes and also type 2 diabetes, prediabetes, type 1.5 diabetes, and gestational diabetes. Over the course of time, I've been able to develop a method with my co-founder, Robbie Barbero. It's called the Mastering Diabetes Method. And he himself is also living with type 1 diabetes. This method has worked for both of us to help us control our blood glucose and keep our insulin use very predictable with a very low A1C, an excellent lipid panel, and a lot of energy. Over the course of time, what we have done is built a team of very hardworking and outside of the box thinkers, including my wife, Kylie Buckner, who's a registered nurse with more than 20 years of experience as a nurse educator, and a nurse leader. We've also built a team of brilliant coaches that includes registered nurses, registered dietitians, certified diabetes educators, and they've all been trained in the rigorous, and I do mean rigorous, science of plant-based nutrition, which I'll be talking about in a little bit more. Now, we've directly changed the lives of more than 10,000 people, and we've indirectly changed the lives of more than 250,000 people around the world. And guess what? We're only just getting started. It's actually quite humorous that the research has always been there. There's actually 100 years of scientific research dating back to the 1920s, including thousands of studies that demonstrate the true power of a plant-based diet. Now, back in 1926, Dr. Sansom published a paper reporting on what he called a radical experiment. He'd been conducting this experiment in about 150 of his patients. He increased carbohydrate-rich foods in his patients' diets by adding bread, potatoes, low-fat milk, interestingly, as well as fruit. The goal was to make his patients feel better and improve their quality of life. Now, that's exactly what happened, but the real surprise was that his patients' insulin requirements didn't change despite the fact that they were eating more carbohydrate. Even though this diet is still technically considered a high-fat diet because it contained 43% of calories as fat, simply adding more carbohydrate-rich food and lowering the overall fat content resulted in significantly improved insulin sensitivity within a very short period of time. Now, in 1927, J. Shirley Sweeney, MD, published a fascinating study with 23 male medical students split into 4 groups. The subjects in the first group were given a high-protein diet consisting of lean meat, of egg whites, and subjects in the second group were fed a high-fat diet, including oil, mayonnaise, cream, and butter. Subjects in the third group were not given any food, and instead they fasted for 2 full days. Subjects in the fourth group were given a carbohydrate-rich diet consisting of sugar, candy, pastries, bread, potatoes, syrup, fruits, brown rice, and oats. All subjects underwent an oral glucose tolerance test, and the results were nothing short of fascinating. The carbohydrate diet, which you would expect to have the highest glycemic response to an oral glucose tolerance test, showed the greatest level of glucose tolerance. In other words, the people who were eating the highest carbohydrate diet actually had the best glucose response. At the 2-hour mark, the average blood glucose amongst the carbohydrate group was 96 milligrams per deciliter, which is considered a non-diabetic blood glucose value, despite the fact that they ate processed carbohydrate-rich junk food, and that's really important. The average blood glucose level on the high-fat diet was north of 173 milligrams per deciliter, which suggests that in as little as 2 days, non-diabetic medical students began displaying the symptoms of type 2 diabetes simply by eating a high-fat diet. Now, in response to this, Dr. Sweeney took his experiment one step further. The students who showed the highest blood glucose readings on the high-fat diet were fed the high carbohydrate diet and vice versa. In other words, they were flip-flopped. When these students switched from one diet to the next, their blood glucose values changed rapidly. Those who ate a high-fat diet experienced blood glucose values greater than 190, and those that ate a carbohydrate-rich diet experienced blood glucose values less than 100 milligrams per deciliter. This evidence was one of the first papers to clearly demonstrate that high blood glucose occurs in response to an increasing quantity of dietary fat and not carbohydrate energy. And keep in mind, this was back in 1927. Following up, in 1930, Israel Rabinowitz, MD, started experimenting with a high carbohydrate, lower fat diet in his patients. He used a very methodical approach where he taught the diet to patients using wooden blocks to help them understand how much food to eat at any given meal. His diet plan consisted of the following. For breakfast, people were eating 1 egg, 1 fruit, together with 10 grams of butter, 3 pieces of bread, and 4 ounces of low-fat milk. For lunch, subjects ate 1.5 ounces of meat or fish with some vegetables, fruit, and the same amount of butter, bread, and milk. And for dinner, his patients ate 1.5 ounces of meat or fish with vegetables, fruit, and the same amount of butter, bread, or milk. Now, the bread alone contained 162 grams of total carbohydrate per day, which was a significant departure from the standard treatment at the time. Dr. Rabinowitz made it very clear that the bacon, the fatty meats, the fish, and the cream were forbidden, with a total of approximately 24% of total calories of fat in any given diet. In 50 patients, Dr. Rabinowitz reported the following results. He saw that insulin-dependent patients required less insulin and fewer injections. And his non-insulin dependent patients, adding carbohydrate to the diet did not stimulate the need for exogenous insulin or insulin from the outside world. He also improved blood glucose control in all of his patients. He lowered cholesterol in all patients. And the brilliance of this study is that his patients were not calorie restricted at all during the study. They ate a similar number of calories on both diets. Now, here's my point. There's a collection of papers that we could also talk about, and we could go on for hours about it. But my point here is that the research has been around for a very long time. We were just some of the people who listened and began collating it all together, because the rest of the diabetes world seemed to be on the opposite side, telling doctors and patients with diabetes that carbohydrates are the cause of diabetes, even though the literature, the medical research, literally told the exact opposite story. So we developed the Mastering Diabetes method, which took us multiple years to systematize and document using the 4 basic principles of: number 1, a low-fat, plant-based whole food diet; number 2, daily movement; number 3, intermittent fasting; and number 4, documenting your daily habits. This has been a success for thousands of people, and the results keep coming in. People are telling us about how their A1C has dropped significantly and they're losing tremendous amounts of weight. Other people are telling us that not only are they losing weight, upwards of 50 pounds, but simply by changing his wife's diet, his wife was also able to lose 40 pounds as well. We see these types of stories over and over, and it's really heartwarming to see. People are demonstrating that their A1C value has dropped into the 5.5 range, which is in the non-diabetic range, and that this program is one of the better things that they've ever done for their overall health, not only their blood glucose control, but for their overall health. In addition to that, people are telling us that they have lost 20 pounds, they have more energy, and that their insulin use has decreased by as much as 35%. I can tell you, in my particular situation, my insulin use got cut by 40%, and I'm living with type 1 diabetes, and it has held true for the past 20 years. So there's no question that this method is very effective. It's changed the lives of thousands of people of all different shapes and sizes and colors and ages and medical backgrounds. In fact, we're proud to say that we've actually saved people's lives, which is awesome. We've helped them live more years, increase their quality of life, and avoid costly and, most of the time, unnecessary medical interventions. Now, if you love stories of other people's transformations, then join the club. I do too. All you can do is visit our blog at masteringdiabetes.org/blog and subscribe to our YouTube channel and watch video after video after video of people telling their stories of what they were before and what they were after the Mastering Diabetes method. Hey, thanks for tuning in. My name is Cyrus Khambatta, and I'm the co-author of the New York Times best-selling book, Mastering Diabetes. Now, I struggled with diabetes for years following conventional medical treatment, and my health deteriorated before my eyes very quickly. I then decided to take my health into my own hands and do a deep dive into the scientific research. And after years of learning the nitty-gritty details of insulin resistance and experimenting with my own lifestyle and helping other people reverse insulin resistance, I then co-created the life-changing Mastering Diabetes method with Robbie Barbero, and that has helped thousands of people master diabetes once and for all. Now, if you want to learn those secrets, well, they're right here in this book, and you can get your copy if you visit masteringdiabetes.org/book or click the link in the description. Now, this book has more than 3,000 reviews and has changed the lives of more than 100,000 people living all around the world. And it's designed to be your gateway to living a lifestyle that's guaranteed to reverse that annoying condition called insulin resistance that lurks behind the scenes and makes your blood glucose hard to control. And whether you're living with type 1, type 1.5, pre-diabetes, type 2 diabetes, or gestational diabetes, this book has a wealth of knowledge and more than 800 scientific references inside. Now, trust me when I say this book is designed to be a game changer for your health. So head on over to Amazon and pick a copy today. If you're ready to be the next success story, then visit masteringdiabetes.org/book or click the link in the description, pick up your copy today, and let us know what you think. Now, we're not superheroes here. We didn't go on some intergalactic journey to find a miracle cure. We just looked at the research, found some things that were being done very wrong, and decided to make some significant modifications to the playbook so that we could dramatically improve the health of ourselves as well as thousands of other people. We made some changes, we tested them, and we saw that it worked for us and it worked for other people, and then we systematized the entire process. Now, as any good science is, as any good method should be. It has to be repeatable. So we decided to share it with our community and found that even though people come from different walks of life, the solution to lower blood glucose doesn't care how old you are. It doesn't care what race you are, and it doesn't care about your genetic history. You're welcome to dig up anything that you'd like to distinguish between two different people and try and describe why a low carbohydrate diet is going to be more beneficial for one person and that it's going to be difficult for the second person. But the truth is that if you're living with any form of diabetes, I'm pretty confident that I can tell you how you can improve your life simply by changing the foods you eat, your movement patterns, your ability to fast, and documenting your diet. Now, meat, dairy, sugar, and the healthcare lobbies, they want us to eat more meat, more dairy, and more sugar-laden products because guess why? It's because they make money. Now, the problem is that we get physically addicted to these types of foods, and then we buy more, and then they make more money. And it's a perfectly feed-forward system for them, and it causes negative consequences to you in the short term and in the long term. The problem is that you fall into this trap. You get sick. You spend more money on unnecessary health-related expenses, and the pharmaceutical industry then steps in to make their money. It's a vicious cycle, and it can be almost entirely avoided simply by making more intelligent choices when you're at the grocery store and when you're preparing your own food at home and when you're eating out at restaurants. It's not rocket science. It never has been. All it is it requires that you have an open mind. It requires that you follow the methodology that scientists have discovered to be the most optimal for human health. You have to commit to the process with every ounce of your being. You have to surround yourself with like-minded people, and you have to put on your long-term goggles. You want to pay attention to your short-term results, but you want to pay more attention to your long-term results. Now, there's many stories in the news about important scientific studies that are being suppressed, about scientific research being paid for by special interest groups and pharmaceutical companies, and almost fraudulent data being published in prominent scientific journals. It happens every day, and most of these stories don't even make it to the mainstream media because they're just flat out boring and people are tired of hearing them. And they don't capture the attention of the masses as other shiny objects do. And the conflicts that exist online on social media are extremely intense. And they only get more contentious over the course of time as an increased amount of misinformation is spread throughout the population. The unfortunate truth is that the majority of people want to eat meat. They want to eat sugar. They want to eat ice cream. They want to drink alcohol, and they don't want to move their body. And this facilitates industries that prey on convenience and short-term solutions and get healthy, quick schemes. I'm sure you've seen these before. They're all over the grocery store. They're all over marketing, and they're hard to escape. But guess what? The never-ending search for convenience foods, for supplements, and for miracle products that promise to rapidly fix your health cause suffering in the long term. And as long as people continue to ask for it, billion-dollar industries will continue to provide short-term solutions that are long-term liabilities. All you have to do is go online. If you visit Reddit, you can take a look at the Reddit keto subgroup, and you'll see that there are more than 3 million subscribers. And the keto diet gets 450,000 monthly searches. In the world of Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, they're littered with overnight health experiments that honestly believe that a low carbohydrate diet is the answer to long-term health. It's all over social media. Now, these people are not bad people. They're just experimenting with short-term benefits. They're sharing their experience with others. They're searching for communities of others who feel the exact same way, and then they're perpetuating incorrect information, but they don't know it. Okay, people want the newest, fanciest solution to solve their problems. And we don't want to change very much, or we don't want to work very hard for it. It's just human nature. Society is built around convenience, and as long as that stays true, we'll always have a chronic disease epidemic. And that's not our fault. Yet it might be a little bit of laziness, but these foods and habits, they can hijack your brain and they can make you think that you need them and that you can't live without them. And it's not just your friend Frank or Aunt Joy or Facebook or Aunt Joy on Facebook that's being misled. It's entire generations of doctors that have entered the healthcare system and know next to nothing about nutritional science, and especially nutritional science for people with diabetes. How crazy is that? Your doctor might be giving you advice that works directly against both your short-term and your long-term health and can even worsen your diabetes health. But just like social media influencers, doctors aren't aware that they're spreading scientifically inaccurate information. Doctors are phenomenal people. They're altruistic human beings. They are just puppets inside of a giant confusing machine that are trying to make sense of the information in their life. Now, I know this can seem a little bit scary, but that's not my purpose. I'm not here to scare you. I'm here to open your eyes to the fact that there's a giant problem in the world of diabetes nutrition. And I don't want you to be a pawn to self-serving industries only interested in making more money at the expense of your personal health. This is unfortunately the world in which we live today. Even if you try to get healthy, you often feel like you're just digging a deeper hole. Now, millions of people die from unnecessary complications of diabetes every single year. And tens of millions of people spend their diabetes-shortened lives feeling lethargic, feeling overweight, feeling unhappy, and feeling lost. I hope you can hear it in my voice. Maybe you can hear why this is so important to me. The good news is that there is a solution. And it's in fact so simple, I wish that everyone knew about it. It's funny. We talk about this method like it's this big, scary thing, when in reality, it comes down to three things: picking the right food, having fun in a physically active way, and fasting every so often. You do that, and we can guarantee that you're going to see some positive results. It doesn't matter if you have type 1, type 1.5, prediabetes, type 2 diabetes, type 3 diabetes, or gestational diabetes. These steps work. So first, we're going to touch briefly on why this method works, and then we're going to give you the 3-piece summary, as well as the bonus tip that will help you master your diabetes. At the end of this, you'll be able to walk away and say, all right, cool, I know exactly what I'm supposed to do. I'm just going to go execute this, and my life should change for the better. Okay? The first thing that we're going to do is talk about the studies. Okay? Fat causes insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is the underlying condition that causes high blood glucose, prediabetes, type 2 diabetes, and gestational diabetes. And it is the thing that complicates your blood glucose control when living with any autoimmune version of diabetes, either type 1 or 1.5. Now, guess what? Not only can too much fat increase your level of insulin resistance, but too much protein can also increase your level of insulin resistance as well. It just has a different biological mechanism. Now, we have a much more in-depth content about why protein can cause insulin resistance, and many of the scientific studies demonstrating this repeatable result in the scientific literature. So if you're interested, check out the show notes or the description, or you can geek out with me on another video. Okay. The solution to a high fat and high protein diet that causes insulin resistance is actually the opposite. It's a low fat, low protein, higher carbohydrate, plant-based whole food diet. That's a mouthful, I know. It's low in fat, and it's specifically low in saturated fat because saturated fat is the one type of fat that's the most powerful inhibitor of insulin signaling. As a quick aside, there's 3 types of fat. There's saturated fat, there's unsaturated fat, and there's trans fat. Trans fat has been linked with cardiovascular abnormalities. Saturated fat has been linked with increasing insulin resistance in your liver and muscle, and unsaturated fat is actually considered a beneficial type of fat that actually benefits brain health as well as lowering inflammation in many tissues. If you want to learn more about all of these different fat types as well as the effect of fat on insulin resistance, simply pick up a copy of the New York Times bestselling book, Mastering Diabetes. We released this book back in 2020, and it became a New York Times bestselling book within the first week, which we're very excited about. Pick up this book, learn all about it, geek out about the science of insulin resistance, and seeing the overwhelming body of scientific research behind this approach. All you have to do is go to masteringdiabetes.org/book. In this book, we've included more than 800 scientific references, and you can read each and every one of those studies if you so choose. And if you want to do it, I would love it. Okay. Meat is both high in protein and high in fat. So if you want to include a little bit of meat in your diet, I'm not the food police and I'm not going to tell you you can't do it, but I am going to tell you that having a little bit of meat in your diet is better than having a lot of meat in your diet, but having zero meat in your diet might actually be the best option. Now, the main reason why people living with diabetes are drawn to a diet like the carnivore diet or the ketogenic diet or a low carbohydrate diet in particular is because when you adopt one of these low carbohydrate regimens, you can do a number of things. Number one, you can lose weight rapidly, and people love that. Number two, you can lower your A1C rapidly, and who doesn't want that? Number three, you can reduce your fasting blood glucose rapidly, and that's a good thing. And number four, you can lower your fasting insulin concentrations rapidly, and that's also a good thing. In addition to that, meat tastes good. I'll be the first person to tell you that because I ate it for the first 22 years of my life. Okay. Meat is often associated with being masculine, and it's also backed by charismatic people on social media, often with advanced medical degrees. And eating meat is also associated with strength and power, and it conjures up these images of powerful carnivorous animals like lions and tigers and sharks, and makes you feel like if you were to eat meat, that you also will become a very powerful creature. Okay. The true results of a meat-based diet become more clear in the long term, and they're harder to see in the short term. And the reason is because over the course of time, eating meat increases your level of insulin resistance. It increases your LDL cholesterol, which is your bad cholesterol, and it increases your fasting blood glucose levels. And this is something that can be repeated over and over. Now, if you take a look into the research, what you'll find is that these principles are shown in large-scale studies as well as small-scale studies. Now, the EPIC study, which stands for the European Prospective Investigation into Cancer and Nutrition, is one of the largest investigations ever performed to investigate the connection between nutrition and chronic disease. And it involved hundreds of researchers, more than 500,000 participants, and 12 years of data. What the researchers discovered was very straightforward, which is that meat, especially processed meats like bacon and cold cuts and sausage and hot dogs and hamburgers, increases your risk for type 2 diabetes, while eating a diet rich in fruits and vegetables reduces your diabetes risk. You would think that this would be common knowledge, but unfortunately, it takes these very large investigations to understand these conclusions. The EPIC study also revealed that replacing 5% of saturated fat with fructose that either comes from fruits or refined sources reduces your diabetes risk by 30%, and that replacing 5% of protein with fructose reduces your diabetes risk by 28%. Now, we're going to film some more information about fructose because there's a lot of people who are freaked out about fructose being in any foods, including fruit, thinking that fructose is a dietary enemy. But what this study demonstrated is that when you increase your fructose intake in substitution for the consumption of meat, you actually reduce your diabetes risk instead of increasing it. The Adventist Health Study performed an analysis of more than 8,000 people in a community in Southern California. And this took place over the course of 17 years. And they found extremely strong relationships between meat consumption and diabetes. In comparison with people who ate zero meat, people who ate meat as infrequently as once per week were 29% more likely to develop diabetes. And those who ate salted or processed meats were 38% more likely to develop diabetes. This is very important because we're not talking about large serving sizes. We're just talking about a little bit of meat eaten frequently, and that can significantly increase your risk for the development of type 2 diabetes. The Health Professionals Follow-Up Study was another study that was performed in 2002. And researchers analyzed data from more than 42,000 male subjects over 12 years and found that men who ate more total and more saturated fat developed significantly more cases of type 2 diabetes. They found that men who ate processed meats like bacon, hot dogs, hamburgers, sausage, salami, and bologna at least 5 times per week, 5 servings per week, were 46% more likely to develop type 2 diabetes than those who ate meat only once per month. And the Nurses' Health Study, to this day, is one of the largest and most comprehensive studies on the connection between meat and diabetes risk. In 2011, researchers from the Harvard Public School of Public Health performed an analysis of data from more than 200,000 men and women taken over the course of 19 years. Their results were tremendous. They found that both unprocessed and processed red meat consumption increased the risk of developing type 2 diabetes. Eating just 1 serving per day of unprocessed red meat increased diabetes risk by 12%, which may not sound like a large risk increase, but it is. And eating 1 serving per day of processed red meat increased diabetes risk by 32%. 5%. The higher your meat intake, the greater your risk for the development of type 2 diabetes over the subsequent 4 years. Okay, we see this repeated over and over and over again in the scientific literature. And when you start to see patterns like this emerge in a very repeatable process, you start to pay attention. So if you can't have meat and you know that eating meat increases your risk for type 2 diabetes, well, what else? What should I be eating, Cyrus? Let's think about it from this different perspective. Apples are food. Oats are food. A Twinkie is a lab experiment. And lab experiments are full of addicting chemicals that can influence the neurobiology of your brain, and they can cause intense food cravings. The trick is that food manufacturers have gotten very good about disguising lab experiments as food in the grocery store. For a lot of people, the hardest part comes to not eating lab experiments and selecting real food instead. The problem is that food manufacturers are really good at making food that is a lab experiment look real tasty and have the right words on the packaging to make you want to buy it at the grocery store. Damn you, food manufacturers. Why are you so good at what you do? Okay. All of this leads to the fact that a low-fat, plant-based, whole food diet is a more logical choice for optimal diabetes health. We like to refer to it as eating green light foods because you have a green light to eat as much food as you want without portion control, without restricting your calorie intake, and without trying to eat less and less food over the course of time. Because this lifestyle is specifically designed to contain foods that are low in calorie density on purpose, because that enables you to feel full without taking on a large amount of calories. And that enables you to lower your body weight while reducing your blood glucose simultaneously. If you enjoy eating food, if you enjoy eating colorful fruits, vegetables, legumes, and whole grains, then guess what? You are going to enjoy this very much. Now, I personally have been eating a low-fat, plant-based whole food diet for 19 and a half years, and I've managed to eat an average of 3,200 calories per day for 7,117 days and counting. Okay. So if you're worried that you're not going to be able to eat enough food, trust me when I say you absolutely can. Not only am I an example of that, but there are thousands of people who have demonstrated that they can eat anywhere from 1,200 calories a day at the low end, north of 4,000 calories per day at the high end. And there's also entire movies about plant-based athletes who eat nothing but a plant-based diet, who are eating even more than 4,000 calories per day on nothing but plant material. Speaking of athletes, let's talk about exercise. Okay, we know that exercise is good for us. No one is going to disagree about the fact that moving your body is good for you, that moving your body is good for your muscles, it's good for your bones, it's good for your brain, and it's flat out something that you should be doing on a daily basis. What's also important to understand is that exercise is important for the general population, but it is even more important for people living with diabetes. And the beauty is that a small amount of exercise can go a very long way. Okay. When you exercise, there are thousands of things that are happening simultaneously inside of your liver, inside of your muscle, inside of your cardiovascular system, inside of your brain, inside of your central nervous system, your peripheral nervous system, and endocrine tissues. We will and can go into a lot of detail about exactly what those changes are. But one of the most important things that happens when you exercise is that you stimulate what's known as non-insulin dependent glucose uptake in your muscles and liver. Now, what that means is that if you think of exercise as being an activity that forces you to oxidize or burn glucose that's present inside of your blood, otherwise known as blood glucose, it also helps you deplete glycogen in your liver and muscles. And glycogen is the stored form of glucose. And that's a good thing, because when you deplete your glycogen reserves, you also have an opportunity to refill those glycogen reserves after exercise is done. Now, exercise stimulates a process known as mitochondrial biogenesis. I studied mitochondrial biogenesis when I was doing my PhD for 5 years, and we're going to be making a lot more content on what mitochondrial biogenesis is. But the TLDR on that is that when you exercise, you stimulate the production of more mitochondria inside of your muscle tissue. More mitochondria means more efficient muscle tissue. More efficient muscle tissue means more oxygen delivery to tissues. More oxygen delivery to tissues means more glucose oxidation, means more fatty acid oxidation, means stronger and more resilient muscles, and that means lower blood glucose. So all of these are beneficial improvements that happen as a result of exercise. Now, I mentioned the non-insulin dependent glucose uptake would also occur. What the heck does that mean? That's a simple way of saying that when you exercise, exercise is a substitute for insulin. So while you're exercising, the need for insulin goes down dramatically because insulin is just a signal to allow glucose to enter your muscle and liver. But when you're exercising, the mechanical contraction of your muscle tissue is what enables glucose to be burned and glucose to be imported simultaneously. Now, when you're done with exercise, there's about a 30-minute to 60-minute window in which insulin is not as needed. So what that means is that glucose can still enter your muscle tissue, not necessarily 100% for free, but for a lot less insulin than normally would be required. So in effect, exercise makes insulin more powerful after exercise, and insulin is a substitute for insulin during exercise. Both of those are good things because it either reduces your insulin requirements if you're injecting exogenous insulin, or it forces your pancreas to simply work less hard. Now, when it comes to exercise, you don't really have to do that much, and that's the beauty of it, okay? You can literally start by walking for 10 minutes a day, or you can get in the swimming pool and just swim for a little bit of time. You can play with your dog. You can watch your grandkids and, of course, play with them by moving your body gently. You can find a class that you enjoy. A group fitness class with a good trainer is always a good option. You can ride a bike. All you need is 15 minutes a day to start seeing great results, and then try and move your activity to north of about 30 to 60 minutes per day. And that's okay if it takes a little bit of time to get to that point, but there's no race. The whole idea is that you will use your body on a daily basis. And when you do that, you will add a consistency of movement into your daily life. And that consistency of movement can go a very long way in making sure that you are stimulating glucose to get inside of your muscle, which will lower your blood glucose value and allow your pancreas to relax. Hey, I'm Cyrus Khambatta, co-founder of Mastering Diabetes. Now, 93% of Americans say that they want to eat healthier, but a third of the people in the United States are overweight and another third are obese. So that means that we're not really getting good results. And what's the culprit? Well, I can point to a pair of trillion-dollar industries like food and healthcare that have every incentive to keep people like you frustrated, uncertain, and hopelessly addicted to foods that are, quite frankly, not good for you. It's a losing battle, and you and I are often the ones whose health gets sacrificed in the process. But if you're looking for a fun, delicious way to eat healthier, to lower your blood glucose, to lose weight, then join the Mastering Diabetes meal plan because it was specifically designed for you. When you sign up, you're going to get 21 new, interesting, and easy to follow recipes delivered every week that are delicious, filling, and 100% guaranteed to help you lose weight and improve your diabetes health. Now, thousands of people have already joined the weekly meal plan, and every breakfast, every lunch, and every dinner inside this meal plan has been tailored based off of hundreds of constructive comments and lots of feedback. All you have to do to get started is visit masteringdiabetes.org/feedme to get started today and receive a fun collection of free bonuses that we think you're gonna love. Get started today, begin eating the tastiest food you've eaten in years, love your newfound health, and we'll see you inside. Visit masteringdiabetes.org/feedme and get started today. Now, when your body fat percentage is high, you can change your diet and you can change your body composition in as short as a few months. And you know what helps that process? It's called intermittent fasting. Now, there's periods of the day where you will go without food, but you can still do normal everyday things, and no, you won't be extremely hungry. Now, it's a true statement that your body does require energy at all times, but the beauty is that energy doesn't necessarily only come from the outside world. You have energy stored inside of you, inside of your adipose tissue, inside of your muscles, inside of your liver. In fact, every tissue can store energy. especially your fat tissue. Your fat tissue is a giant repository. It is a Costco warehouse of energy. And that's a good thing because when you perform a fast, that Costco warehouse of energy becomes the principal location from which energy is derived. Now, this may sound a little bit strange, but we're actually built for fasting. Okay. Do you think that hunter gatherers actually had 3 meals a day and 8 snacks like we do in today's world? Okay. The truth is that we were actually not hunter gatherers, we were gatherer hunters. And we are biologically designed to adapt to long periods of time without exogenous calories from the outside world. Now, one of the things people ask us all the time is say, well, what's the catch, Cyrus? Intermittent fasting doesn't sound like a very fun thing to do. And there's got to be some negative side effects that come along. Well, the truth is that if you start performing intermittent fasting, you definitely have to adapt to it, and it will take a little bit of time to get there. At the beginning, you might feel a little bit hungrier than normal simply because it's a change to your normal everyday routine. But after 3 days or 5 days or 7 days, your brain will actually adapt to a change in eating schedule. And as a result of that, instead of sending out hunger signals at a time when you would normally eat, you no longer produce those hunger signals. And that keeps you from feeling hungry at a time when calories are not likely to be there. So your brain undergoes an adaptation, as does your gut. And the connection between the two of them keeps your hunger level low and only increases your hunger when calories are likely to be there. Intermittent fasting has a number of positive health benefits, including improved ability to lose weight, improved immune health, improved diabetes health, a lower A1C, a lower fasting blood glucose, lower blood pressure. It becomes easier and actually cheaper to feed yourself. You are likely to experience more energy, even though that sounds counterintuitive. You're likely to sleep better, and you're likely to improve the quality of your life. I know it may sound weird that eating less food actually can increase the quality of your life, but the truth is that many people report back to us that that's exactly how they feel. And a lot of the times people say, you know what? I don't even understand why I'm overcomplicating this entire food thing. I just feel better when I don't eat food. Now, there's one last tool. It's called the decision tree. And I'll be honest with you, the decision tree is admittedly a very tedious exercise, but it's also one of the most important things that you can do when living with diabetes. The decision tree is a tool that we designed that is here to consolidate your food, your insulin use, your medication use, your exercise, your blood glucose checks, and all of your notes in one simple location. And the purpose of that is that you can then use that information to recognize patterns and solve problems in real time. What we have found over the course of time is that people living with diabetes record some information in their phone, some information on a piece of paper, some information inside of one app, a different information inside of another app. Their continuous glucose monitor is sending information to a third location. And before you know it, you ask a simple question like, how much insulin did you use for lunch? And it's hard to know the answer. The decision tree is designed to consolidate all that information into one location so that you can see it all and visually be able to determine what is the difference between cause and effect. And when you put all that information in one simple location, it makes a massive difference in your ability to see what is actually controlling your blood glucose. All you have to do is document your food, your exercise, your sleep, your stress levels, your activities, and your medication use on a daily basis. And when you put it all down in one simple location, these patterns become visual. And when they do, it enables you to make decisions that are going to significantly improve your long-term health because you have optics on the very things that matter. Now, I know that nutritional biochemistry is complicated. Trust me, I've been doing this for the past 15 years, and nutrition can become a very confusing subject, and it can get very deep and extremely nerdy. But the truth is that mastering diabetes does not have to be complicated. Now, if you want or you are in need of help because your blood glucose is high, maybe you're overweight, maybe you're taking a lot of medication and you don't know what to do, then we have you covered. If you're struggling with high blood glucose, or you want some guidance, or you want to figure out what works with your lifestyle, we've got all that wrapped up in a nice friendly package, and it's called personalized coaching. Now, we have a team of brilliant coaches that are also registered nurses, registered dietitians, and certified diabetes educators who have all been trained in the rigorous science of plant-based nutrition. We have directly changed the lives of more than 10,000 people, and we've indirectly changed the lives of more than 250,000 people. All you have to do is visit masteringdiabetes.org/start. And when you do, you'll be able to schedule a free consultation to talk with someone on our team. Simply choose a date on the calendar that works for you, choose a time that works within your schedule, and then fill out a form with your personal information and answer some simple questions about your personal history. And then a team member will pick up the phone, speak with you, and see if we can help you significantly improve your diabetes health. We're going to go through a very extensive evaluation. We're going to go through everything that you've done in the past, understand what has worked, what hasn't worked, and we're going to come up with a game plan that is guaranteed to improve your health. We know this because this is based off of your responses, your lifestyle, your preferences, and your unique metabolic health. This is not some one-size-fits-all approach that we send you a PDF and say, hey, go figure it out yourself. Okay, this is your chance to finally take the guesswork out of reversing insulin resistance, permanently losing weight, gaining a ton of energy, and reducing or eliminating oral medications. I want you to sit in the driver's seat of your diabetes health once and for all, to live the life that you've always wanted without worrying about your risk for diabetes complications. Again, all you have to do is visit masteringdiabetes.org/start. Start the process today, sign up for a discovery call, and we are here to carve out a personalized program that is guaranteed to work for you. Now, the final word here is that diabetes can be very complicated, and this is a very large problem in today's world. Millions of people are living with it. Millions of people have had their lives ruined by it, and millions more people are going to die from the complications of diabetes. But just because that's the case for the general population does not mean that that has to be the case for you if you're living with any form of diabetes. Okay, you are not alone. You're searching for high quality information that can positively impact your life. And despite all the misinformation on the internet today from companies that are trying to profit off of you and other health seekers who haven't quite got the research down, there really is a simple and very straightforward solution. All you have to do is eat mostly fruits, vegetables, legumes, and intact whole grains, and make sure that the food you're eating is actually real food, not a lab experiment. Just get outside, have some fun, and make sure that you're moving your body on a daily basis. And if you want fast results, well, just think of the term fasting. Fasting is a surefire way to increase your insulin sensitivity repeatedly, and it works like wildfire, especially if you combine it with a low-fat, plant-based whole food diet and with daily movement. And that's literally it. You can reverse insulin resistance in weeks if you go all in on the process and fully commit to it. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below or reach out to us on social media, and a member of our team will reach out to you to guide you to exceptional health. Once again, all you have to do is visit www.masteringdiabetes.org/start. Sign up for a discovery call today. We will carve out a personalized regimen that works for you and make sure that you increase your quality of life and sit in the driver's seat of your diabetes for the rest of your life. Hope you have a great day. We'll see you soon.